Spun at the Denver Art Museum is a campus-wide exhibit that wraps people's minds in textiles. And from pre-Columbian weavings to contemporary light installations, DAM is pushing the boundaries of what one might consider to be fiber art.
It's an eye-opener for what today we take for granted. This exhibition functions on so many different levels. One is exactly that, function. How different textiles might have been used or were used, whether it's for warmth and comfort when you're sleeping, protection, sacred rituals. There are so many different techniques represented in this exhibition. People think of weaving and embroidery perhaps off the top of their heads, but by extension, quilting and coverlets, tapestry, block printing, resist dyeing, so all the different ways to decorate that piece of cloth.
But it's not just about cloth for today's artists. Many are experimenting, weaving together unexpected materials, and echoing the layers and depth found in more traditional textile works.
There are a plethora of materials available to artists today, and this is such an incredible representation of over 40 years of contemporary art. And you can really see whether it's textiles, wood, charred wood, light. There's different mediums throughout this exhibition that really lure you in. And it's different than the historic textile galleries where there's much more of a functional aspect to the work. In this show, it's more artists of our own time thinking about issues that are relevant to us living today. This is a young artist. She's taken apart children's teddy bears and then reconstituted them in this rug, in this wall piece, and creates this sort of Rorschach pattern. You know, the ink blot test. Sort of having fun with materials and thinking about how when you take them out of their normal context, they might mean something different.
I made these works in the early 90s at the height of the AIDS crisis. A lot of my friends were dying, and this work really was in response to that. So for me to plow my way systematically through time by knitting for about 10 years of knitting about 12 hours, 13 hours a day. So it was a way for me to keep track and also to meditate on the passage of time.
Artist Oliver Herring's work is a reflection of his experience. I asked curator Alice Zabritz how other people throughout history have used materials, and as a result, what we learn about culture.
Textiles say a lot about culture. It could be the materials, because certain areas of the world having flocks of sheep and they might be making their textiles from wool. Others might have flax or linen. Others are silk growing culture. So where you live in the world, that's going to influence to a degree what your textiles are made from. Of course, trade is a big part of that, and people are always incorporating things taken from a distance into their own. Color choices can be dictated by culture. You'll see a lot of indigo in the show. Many of those textiles are from Japan, whereas the Uzbek ikat is a flame of colors. They are in an art museum, and we are appreciating them for either fabulous design, beautiful workmanship, but always the beauty of the object.
So we're here in the quilt studio, which is part of Spun. Why did the museum want to include a space like this, Jenna?
This is not your grandma's quilt studio. This is really about contemporary practice. So really thinking about the ways that colors and patterns and different textures work, which is exactly the same process that a painter or a sculptor goes through in making this creative decision.
There's labels throughout the exhibition. You can use your mobile phone and take a picture of the QR code beneath the label, and it takes you to videos and the artists talking about their work. And I would venture to say that all art is interactive. A lot of contemporary artists, the viewer completes the piece. So it is an interactive thing. We all bring baggage and different meanings to a work, and the transposition is looking at interactivity through technology. And that's a very new thing. I mean, only the accessibility of young artists being able to work with technology to make a piece like that has only come about in the last decade. Your movement is picked up by cameras that you don't see and is translated through software to create this movement that's projected onto the wall. It becomes this optical effect, and it's quite beautiful. But it also makes you aware of your body and your own movements. It's a very poetic, simple piece. It's a very different way of thinking about making art, and so art is no longer just a painting or a sculpture or a photography for that matter. So that's what I love about contemporary art. You can see this sort of transgression of how they're all continuing to push the limits of what a piece of wood can do, or just fabric and materials in general, to convey these very deep, thoughtful, emotional, and political responses.